again. Ralph Hartman here on the roadside Beneva Road, south of Palmer Ranch. About the video that I made earlier, I just recalled some additional detail. Pertaining to the former stepfather, Bill Love, whom I mentioned would have been a Navy pilot back during the 40s. A comment of his very early in life, back that I recall from high school years, was saying that he said, I believe that aircraft carriers have become obsolete and predicted boats for the future. Now, that was his particular term for submarines, but we know really that in history that we, about terminology, the word U-boats was generally used only for the German submarine fleet during the First and Second World Wars. So, that might have been an indication of a future intent that it was kind of subversive. And another detail that I can't prove, but I do suspect about, is that he's also involved with some kind of weather manipulation. I don't have any knowledge about how it could be possible, but I do believe that Bill Love has some association with an ability of manipulating storms. Certainly about the artificial use of lightning. I do recall that back before I had any suspicion against him, that I spent about a few August, September, October, November, about 3.5 months temporarily living in a new house that he had built on Longboat Key on Norton Street, and there was one instance of what was termed a no-name storm, kind of a fast mini hurricane, and he wanted to emphasize about how the eye of it passed directly over his house. Detail I do remember from that storm was really kind of spooky, that along that street there, Norton Street, street lights, the horizontal beams of street lights looked like they writhed, that they weren't just manipulated by the wind, but that they writhed kind of snaky looking. It just didn't, it didn't look like something that was happening because of the wind, but some kind of power variation. So anyway, that reminded me also that one of the Navy's aircraft carriers was sunk off of Pensacola to become an artificial reef years after. I forget exactly what year it was. USS Forest. The positioning of it reminded me of the path of the Hurricane Elena, the hurricane of August of 1985. During 1985, as Hurricane Elena approached, I was temporarily living in my mother's house in Holmes Beach, and I remember she got very irritable about being kind of even frantic about evacuating, and she had some friends who lived on Cortez Road in Bradenton who had decided to have something of a hurricane party, and I went ahead and attended also. And really, they were mostly very cordial. I don't have any complaint in my memory of them. The detail I'm wanting to remember, however, is that one of the guests was a former U-boat man, an old man who said that he had been a crew member of a German U-boat back during World War II. There was some chess played. I drank some beer. Personally, I spent the night sleeping out on the house's screen porch. I don't know. I don't recall the man's. I don't recall the old German man's name. But I guess he might have been the man who ended up writing, or had written, the book Das Boot about the German U-boat 69. Well, 69 looks kind of similar to the symbolism of a symbol of a hurricane if you combine both the 6 and the 9 together. So anyway, that detail, Hurricane Elena, the path of the storm was actually east of Bradenton, west of Bradenton, over the Gulf of Mexico. went up north towards the Panhandle area and then turned back. And I know that it probably isn't exactly a fact, but it seems to me the possibility of Belov also being subversive in the decisions to use former Navy ships as targets and sinking others to become artificial reefs, and that the positioning of Forrestal might have been part of like a roadmap of indication of conspiracy, and to remind of the course of Hurricane Elena. And of course, like I said, during that hurricane, I spent the night in a house where there were some nice people having a hurricane party. It wasn't a wild party or anything. It was just a social get-together, some drinks and conversation. And one of the guests, an old German man, alleged that he had been a crewman on a German U-boat back during World War II. If he was the old German man who wrote the boat's name is Lothar Gunther Buckheim. What else I'm reminded of is that a couple of days ago, a man who looked like Buckheim rode past in a car heading north here on Beneva. I was on the Peck Street bus stop, and it has actually been alleged that Buckheim had lived on Peck Street, and I doubt that is true. But there had been an old man who I courteously greeted a couple of times on the corner there, but he didn't speak with a German accent. But the man who resembled Buckheim rode past in a car a couple of days ago when I was on the Peck Street stop, and but he wasn't wearing an eye patch. I remember reading an article about Buckheim, who allegedly died years ago. That's in a written report. I don't remember exactly what year, but I found that there was an obituary for Buckheim that he had died in Berlin or somewhere else in Germany, and that he had been living in the Prussia area of Germany. And days ago, a man who sounded partly Russian or Ukrainian alleged that a difficulty had been in Eastern Europe, that there was something of a covert kind of Prussian invasion. And of course, that would be a significant concern if Buckheim had actually been involved with a plot of taking over in a ballistic missile submarine. So, of course, the impetus is that ships and submarines are secure against piratical kind of seizures instead. We do know that it doesn't take much conjuring or imagination to understand that the Buckheim name reminds of the prefix of the local Tampa area football team, Buccaneers, and there is concern against some of the Buccaneers imagery. You know, their advertising symbolism is piratical, and most of it is used just in sporting, but some of it is really bad. You know, if you see the kind of symbolism in other ways, that it's kind of a warning. So, and the emphasis of the color red also, because what I mentioned in the first video about an article in the beginning of in Time magazine in the beginning of 2001, the reason that it caused concern was because in the article it alleged that the wording of the article in particular, it was in March of 2001, wanted to portray it as though the USS Nebraska became independently the 6th largest nuclear power in the world when it was at sea. So when I read that back in 2001, I for the first time became aware of what was termed the possibility of a rogue submarine. You know, you've sort of seen the word rogue used in terms of stormtrooper. You know, the article name is Douglas Waller, about a cruise of the USS Nebraska in 1999. We had mentioned the pivotal year 1999 earlier. Before then, I wouldn't have had a clue about anything. I didn't even wonder about submarines or anything. I didn't even think about it, about what I had witnessed back in '99, actually. So this was all retrospective. But because there hasn't been any resolving of the matter, that concern continues. Although I think there have been so many reports and concerns through the years that any difficulty, any possible danger has probably been alleviated. But really, that particular article from Time Magazine precipitated a lot of studies that produced a lot of evidence of conspiracy. I reported to many, including the local sheriff's department. And though I still never received any replies about anything, there have been many concerns of their, being indications of there having been concern. So anyway, another person I have mentioned otherwise, Albert Hartman. Somebody just emphasized his name in traffic broadcasting. They basically don't accept my existence. They say Al's eyes about my eyes, etc. And I'll tell you, a reason is because when I was an 11-year-old, I was a pallbearer for Albert Hartman's funeral in Miami. I was 11. Albert Hartman was almost 34 years old when he allegedly died of leukemia in Baptist Hospital of Miami on North Kendall Drive. But it turns out that he lived on in secret conspiracy, possibly including weather variation, and was originally from Nebraska, the Lincoln, Nebraska area. Indication being that he was involved with, about Big Red is also the nickname of the University of Nebraska's athletics department. This is kind of rambling, but it does touch upon the various details accurately. When I noticed that the article, the obituary for Buckheim included an eye patch over his left eye, black eye patch, that reminded me that, perhaps the black masks that people are wearing these days are indicative of a don't say anything about a particular black eye patch. But that was just a thought I just had. I hadn't thought of that before. The eye patch, of course, reminded me of an accusation that had been set against myself secretly starting back in '81, about a year before the Das Boot movie was made, accusing that there had been a stain from another man on the outer corner of my left eye. But they were entirely wrong. I had been a moment of accidental and embarrassing clumsiness while home alone with a beautiful Playmate pictorial I'd never seen before. But I don't want to bother people about embarrassments. But others secretly pivoted on a clinic visit back then to spread a terrible rumor that I had secretly become homosexual and was proceeding to act. But that wasn't true. I continued to be normal. So anyway, the eye patch reminded me of that. And then, of course, the reminder of the hurricane party that I mentioned in '85. And also that in the book, Big Red, after the article, Time Magazine article, I found the book Big Red on the shelf in the Gulfgate Library. And I noticed that a crewman was wearing a black eye patch over his left eye, looking amused about it. But it isn't really amusing if there's somebody pivoting on secretly on somebody to say, well, Hartman used to be a good sailor, but this is what he did and what we ought to do, and there's a kind of a fiery difference also. So the black eye patch of the crew member in the photo in the book Big Red, and the black eye patch of Buckheim, the author of Das Boot, the old 1981 Orlando medical malpractice, all those matters seem to link together to Bill Love and others being a nuclear conspiracy. Another detail that I had mentioned in previous reports is that, as I said in the first video, Bill Love liked to tout that he drove the USS Grayling. He was a guest of Kenneth Wilcoxon, who was a nuclear power operator on the USS Grayling back then. Of all U.S. submarines, the USS Grayling ended up being involved in a collision with a Russian ballistic missile submarine, the Novomoskovsk. The result of the collision being both submarines suffered just minor damage. I think it was said that the Grayling experienced damage to its conning tower. The Grayling subsequently, a couple of years after it, was retired and eventually scrapped, according to official records. But another nickname of Bill Love, if he was involved with a veering off course of some kind when he drove the Grayling, it was meant to evolve into being something of an SSBN. An old nickname of Bill Love's might have been relevant. The bump. It sounds kind of stupid, but it is true that he had touted that a nickname of him had been the bump. And I think other people who had lived in Sebring back during the 70s will remember that something else that might have evolved from Bill Love's conspiring was a dance called the bump. But at the time, the people didn't realize that the bump might have also been linked to a pesky variety of bugs that had swarmed into the area around the same time, named love bugs. But anyway, I'll continue this later on, but for now I'm concluding, again hoping that everyone is having a good, peaceful day, and that the future weeks and months will become more secure, with less likelihood of any further warfare, hoping that matters are resolved and that peace is reestablished in Ukraine.